Okay, so this video going over how I glue up and finish up my tops. We're doing a big project for a restaurant. One table's already been delivered. I have 7 tops here that I'm finishing up, and also I have to build 7 bases. But here we go with the video. Okay, so first we're going to start with a quick millet process. So the millet process for me, if you don't get lumber on 4 sides or 3 sides, is rough lumber from a sawmill where you're going to have to go to a circular saw or a miter saw to get one to get the rough length before you take it over to your jointer. Get one straight flat face, then hopefully one straight edge, depending on how long the lumber is. If it's too long, then I like to take over to the track saw and get one straight edge. This is the best option for that, I think, especially with longer lumber. And if you don't have a big jointer, like I don't have a benchtop jointer, so the track saw is perfect. And then I take over to the planer, get to the final thickness or close to it, before taking the table saw to get the last straight edge and also to the final width of the lumber before we start our lamination process. Okay, so the first example of lamination, I'm going to be using a domino. There's going to be 3 scenarios here. I'm going to speed the video up. So we're going to use dominoes and glue to start with this first one. Dominoes are probably, I think, the best option if you have cupped wood or even a little twisted, if you don't want to run it through your planer sled, which is another option which I didn't get into during the millet process. You can use a planer sled if you don't have lumber that's too wide for your planer, and it's manageable. So here I'm just going to be using a domino, some glue and dominoes. These are going to be 6 by 40 millimeter dominoes on this application, and some Type Bond 3 glue. And I'll be using the same glue on all 3 scenarios. The other scenario will be biscuits and just glue. And the important part about this with any type of glue up is make sure when you clamp everything up, you have, whether if you have cawls or F-style clamps on the edges to keep the edges lined up. Since the dominoes do a pretty good job typically, so do the biscuits, but not always. You still sometimes see some variation, a couple of high spots or low spots, and sometimes you have to tap it with a hammer, or use cawls to get the final lineup. But this is a pretty good solution. So now we're going to use the biscuit, with just some glue, same glue, same application for the most part, except we're using biscuits. And just going to speed these videos up so I don't bore you to death with too much detail. But yeah, we're just going to use the biscuits here. Same clamping pressure. I like use cabinet clamps for the bottom, and I like to use pipe clamps for the top, with F-style clamps on the edges if need be, or cawls. So this is the process, and it's all 3 scenarios are pretty similar. So this is how we do it. Okay, so also when you're gluing up, whether it be with dominoes, biscuits, or just glue, you just want to have nice, even clamping pressure. I like to use a little mallet too to get one size as even as possible. So when I cut it off at the end, it just makes it easier. So I like to tap in with a mallet if need be. Um, so this, we're just going to be using glue for the third scenario. So all 3 scenarios are pretty much the same results, and there were 6 tops altogether, and I did 3 and 3 for each type of scenario. Um, so hopefully we don't see an issue in a couple years where the ones that don't have the extra glue surface with the biscuits or dominoes have issues, or vice versa. So with just glue, I definitely like to use F-style clamps or cawls more, to get that edges straight, because I do notice sometimes that you will get some high spots. So I just like to tap it with a little mallet and just get the F-style clamps or cawls in the center. I know Rockler makes some good clamps, which I may invest in, that gives you clamping pressure on the sides and tops and bottoms like a vise. So once they come out of glue up the next day, I just like to run a hand plane. It's very satisfying to do this. I like to get the high spots of the glue joints only with this. I'm not going to hand plane the whole top. I'm just getting spots that are really high that I don't want to run an electric planer through at this point. So then we will do that. We're going to run through the belt sander, and then we'll mark each top. And there's 6 tops here, and the dimensions are 42 by 30, and there's a 7th top, which is 42 by 60, and that has rounded edges. That one's done already. But this one, we're just going to try to keep it consistent. So we're going to mark run the electric hand plane. Another option for this is a router sled, which I was thinking about setting up, but I just figured this might be faster and a little more consistent. Um, a little more, maybe more time consuming though, to a certain extent, since you have to run through. But I just think I can control it better, have a less chance of like chip out or anything like that. So I just run through the hand planer each top and make sure I go in order, so that way one top's not thicker than the others. So now we're going to cut the final length. We're going to use the track saw. This track saw makes handy work out of this, but you can use a straight edge and a circular saw, which I've done for years and years. But definitely, the track saw definitely is a good investment for things like this, especially if you're doing a lot of tops like I do at this point. So we're going to just cut this to the final length, and then we'll finish up with our cleanup. Okay, so now we're starting to get towards the end of this. And like I said, I'm not going to go too detailed, but we're going to run a chamfer or a round over on each edge, bottom and top, and then we're going to start sanding. So sanding, I like to, after the belt sander and hand planing and everything, I like to use the orbital sander. I like to start with either a 60 or an 80 grit and work my way up to about 150 grit, depending on the wood type and the type of finish I'm going to be using. So this, we're going to go up to about 150 grit. So this is what we're doing now. We're going to get the edges, the round over edges, and also the top. We're going to sand them down. We're going to sand them down all at one time, all 6 tops. So everything is very consistent and looks uniform. So that's the idea. But if it's just one top, you just want to follow these same steps. Your mill up, your lamination, and then clean up, I call it, and then finish. So this is the cleanup process before we apply our finish. Okay, so now we're getting towards the end of this project, so we're going to be applying some finish, and the finish we're going to be using for this is the Osmo Polyex, and I believe this one's the gloss. I also use the satin a lot, but for this project I'm using the gloss. I think it gives the most sheen, even though I don't know if that's going to be a positive with this, because the client definitely likes the white oak look, and sometimes when you put like Rubio or any type of finish on, it kind of gives it a kind of an amberish look sometimes. So that's what we're doing. We're going to apply the Osmo one. Osmo is good because it's restaurant grade. It's somewhat food safe and not as many chemicals and VOCs. So I think that's a positive, and supposedly it's great for floors and tabletops. So we're just going to rub it in with, buff it in with the Scotch-Brite pad or a buffing pad. You can also use a buffer. I like to manually put it in, just kind of satisfying. We're just going to apply it on there, rub it in, and then we wipe off the excess with a shop cloth at the end, just to remove any excess. So this is about it. So we're just going to rub it in, all 7 tops. We're going to do them all at one time, and this order will hopefully be ready for delivery as soon as possible. Okay, so this video is pretty much completed. Like I said, if you have any concerns or comments or criticisms, or find any value in this, let me know in the comment section. That'd be cool. I'm always learning and always willing to learn. Criticism sometimes is a good thing. I've learned a lot actually on YouTube and even Instagram and other platforms where people have given me uh, constructive criticism, and I think that's awesome. And I've learned from it. And I look back at these old videos and say, oh my God, I can't believe I did this way. And I'm sure a lot of people that create on YouTube do the same thing, or any platform. So this is it. We're just rubbing in the access, and this video is pretty much done. These tops came out beautiful. We're going to get ready to deliver them. And we have 7 bases I have to build next for different types of tops. All right. Thanks for watching.